Relax, the keyboard is off and the press box is closed, but the mic is just getting warmed up. Welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink, the show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. Join your host, Lance Green, the guardian of the blue paint turned writer, and co-host SteelFlyers, as we bring you all the latest on the Philadelphia Flyers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next edition of the Hockey Writers Ink with your host, Lance Green.
All right, guys, another edition, another term to talk Flyers hockey. Can't be mad at that, Steel. I'm ready.
You know, any excuse we get the chance to talk about Flyers hockey, right? So, we need an excuse? Sure. Really? Do we? No, I don't think so. Like we said before, okay, it's been a little while. There hasn't been a lot going on with Flyers. There's no off season for us either. You know what I mean? So we still been cranking out the Prospect Watch show. So be sure to check that out. Go on over to SteelFlyers.com and check out Prospect Watch, or you can go over to the YouTube channel and check out the Hockey Writers Ink or Prospect Watch or all of the other great stuff at SteelFlyers All Sports Network. Also, got to make sure you go over to the website and check out Lance's latest article, which we are going to dive into today, and that's going to be basically the subject of today's show. So what do you think, Lance? You ready to dive into all this great Flyers talk?
I think so.
Awesome sauce. Well, here we go, man. Here we go. We're going with episode number 173, right? 173. Okay, that's I don't care what anybody says. That's a lot, right? But episode number 173, and we're going to talk about free agents that could help the Flyers while still rebuilding. And look, there's been a lot of talk going on, especially with how the draft went. There was a lot of talk about the free agency and how that didn't go, particularly for the Flyers. We're going to talk about a lot of those things, but especially we're going to talk about Lance's latest article where he talks about some players in free agency that he feels would be able to help this team and move forward and not necessarily be expensive pieces and parts. Because let's face it, the Flyers are right there to the cap. I mean, you actually, they're like this, more so. They're in the red now, you know what I mean? With all of their penalties and dead cap space money, and then they just jumped onto that by buying out Cam Atkinson. Okay, I'm scratching my head a little bit here, Danny. Help me out, buddy. So, all right. Just the other day, Lance released his latest article, some free agents that could help the team here, and I want to get into this article. And Lance, look, you and I watched free agency come and go for the Flyers, and really all they did was kind of just do some in-house stuff. You know what I mean? They tenured offers to Bobby Brink, which he signed. They tenured offers to Igor Zamula, which he signed. And then the other dome scratcher was they extended Hathaway. Why? The guy was already under contract. And, it's not like you got this big, giant raise you gave him. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it. I liked Hathaway's game and all that.
I do too. I love it.
Yeah, I think he was second in hits this year in the league, which is needed. Definitely played a big part in the Flyers' fourth line. And great addition by Danny Briere. But
agreed,
he still had another year on his contract. I don't know why. You could deal with this next year. He could go out there. I don't wish this on him, but he could go out there and potentially get hurt next season. And, then we have to fulfill the, agreement and pay that, wage still to him, even though he's injured. I don't know. So I guess they wanted to wrap him up a little bit, longer. Maybe to satisfy his needs or whatever, his wants. So it is what it is. But
Okay.
the matter of the fact is that we didn't go out and potentially bring in anybody new to help this team, besides Mishkov, who's coming in, but he was already in the team system, drafted and all like that. So that's just bringing up some of your own players. Nobody really, signing Eric Johnson back. I don't know if that was needed.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, maybe you wanted that veteran in the
Because
locker
Stahl's not
room
there now.
because Stahl's not there anymore. They didn't re-sign him, obviously. So you kind of have somebody with that experience, but put him behind the bench if you want a guy with that kind of experience. I don't,
Hey, hey, wait! I have a
he's a
great
Stanley
idea,
Cup
Lance.
winner, whatever, but
I have a great idea. Hey,
yeah.
why don't we make him be the power play coach?
Couldn't
At
do any
least he's
worse.
been on the power play a few times. I mean, all right, I'm
Couldn't do any
sorry.
worse, that's for sure.
All right, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I can't believe that guy still has a job. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, after 2 years, and you're still scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you haven't even shown a lick of spark of anything,
Well,
and
that has to play into effect too of some of the speculation on Tortorella's, sticking around. Some people think that he should be on a short leash right now, and
nah,
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I think they're rebuilding and all that, but you know, I can start to see some of that, thought process when he still continues to have on his staff somebody that is so widely ineffective.
That's a
Um,
good way to put that. Oh, I like that.
he's not doing his job. The power play, there we have people on the power. We don't have elite stars, but we have people on the power play that should be able to put the puck in the back of the net, and they just aren't. For the past
No,
2 or 3
no,
seasons, the
no.
team hasn't, and something needs to be fixed there. And I thought that that name would be one of the first names to hear has been released of his duties, and it's not. Rocky Thompson is still a member
Apparently,
of
we
the
were
Flyers
wrong.
Flyers staff for whatever reason. And I don't know. There's a couple of names I would give walking papers to that still have jobs within the team system, but they did clean house a lot at the beginning of last season
Yeah, no, I
with
know.
new management, Danny Briere, and came in, and Keith Jones came in and moved people around. So I don't know. Maybe
More
there's
to do.
more to
More to
do.
do.
Yeah,
Rebuilding. More
yeah,
to do. Rebuilding. I guess. You know what I'm saying. Clearly, that was the message I believe that Danny Briere presented to the entire Flyers nation with how they drafted this year. I believe that they still feel that they're not in a position to be any type of contending type team, and I kind of agree with that
mm,
to an extent. I mean, we saw flashes of what the Flyers could potentially be, and it can only get better. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I look, the collapse happened because injuries stacked up suddenly. A trade of a really good defender happened that needed to happen. I think, to be honest with you, I mean, you know what I mean. And then some injuries stacked up, and then and then the whole Carter Hart going away and not being there. I mean, that to me really was the slide. Was the bottom dropping out for
sure.
them last year. You know what I mean? You can't sit in third place for over 110 days, and not say that team isn't has potential. Do you know what I'm saying? So you had in this great article that you put out, Lance, you had mentioned a couple of names that could potentially come in on the cheap and help this team. Because look, let's face it, this team is still in the rebuilding phase. You know what I mean? And everybody was I think there was that a little bit of false hope, I want to call it, from last year, because we saw the Flyers sit in third place for over 110 days. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they won some games that they probably shouldn't have. You know what I mean? And they lost some games that they probably shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think they necessarily overachieved, but I you know what I'm saying, right? We're getting to that point now where I think this team needs to start turning the corner.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it definitely, they looked very good. They surprised a lot of people last year, but they need to turn that corner. I was hoping that management was going to be able to bring in some other players on the cheap, that could potentially help us and be nice additions to this roster, much like they did last year.
Yeah, yeah.
With
Hathaway,
Ryan
Walker.
Paling and Hathaway, I thought they played a huge role in that, and uh, just didn't see any of those signings. They, like you said, they at the draft they seem to have punted. I know that's a different sports term, but it looked like they seemed
But
to punt.
yeah.
They seem to be punting to 2025, where now they're going to have 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks potentially, and that's great and all, but to get better, you need to use them. And for the Flyers not to utilize the first round pick that they got from the Florida Panthers, granted, it ended up being, the last first round pick, but
So
that is part of the trade package that was for Claude Giroux being sent away, and we still haven't received everything from that package. Um, because we just punted it away to the Edmonton Oilers for their pick next year. And that was kind of disheartening that, when they had a chance, there were still some really great players on the big board there. And we're not gonna be able to get better if we don't use them. So they must think that the 2025 draft is very good. And I don't know. As far as free agency, like you were saying, there was definitely some names that we can get to in this article here that I think that the Flyers still could go out today and bring in on the cheap,
you
and
know what I mean?
or potentially for one of them at least make some moves that have been rumored for a long time now, and bring in somebody that could be a replacement for one of the biggest players on the Flyers roster right now that there are some questions surrounding.
I mean, I'm with you on that, and that's kind of where that's why I was a little surprised that we didn't see anything happen really in free agency.
Yeah.
In your article, you have mentioned 3 potential names that still, even right now today,
Yep.
could get a phone call from Mr. Briere and be like, "Hey, how'd you like to join the Flyers?"
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I want you to talk to me here about the inspiration for this article, which we kind of already know, and then
Yeah.
talk to me about Carter Savoie here, the first name on your list.
Sure. So, I mean, I was just as dumbfounded sitting around, like it was Christmas time, waiting to see some kind of name pop up that
Something.
the Flyers were able to bring in. And I know they were, tight to the cap and whatever else, but I think they could have done something. And there was over $1 billion spent on the first day of free agency, over 1 billion,
In, in,
1.1, like you
in,
said, I
in the
think.
first 12 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the whole first 24 hours. It was only in 12 hours.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Flyers weren't a part of that. And, you know, so I wrote this article, and the first person I thought of was Carter Savoie. Okay, Carter Savoie was an interesting player coming out of the University of Denver, where he won an NCAA national championship
Championship. Yeah,
with
yeah.
the Flyers, Bobby Brink,
Yeah.
and Rizzo, right? We
Yeah.
just signed Rizzo. We got him, basically from Carolina. And, you know, that is a perfect player. He played with them. He's played with players in our system already. He won a championship with those type players. He is only 22 years old. I mean, sign him to a two-way deal, put him in the system, and let's see what he can do for Denver in their championship season. He scored 23 goals and 22 assists for 45 points in only 39 games played.
I mean,
Um, he he was drafted in 2020 in the fourth round because of his height. I think he would have went much higher if he was a little bit bigger, but he's a stocky player. He's creative in the offensive zone. He's
plays a big game.
deceptive, just like Bobby Brink. He can disappear on the ice and reappear in scoring position. He is a smaller guy, but he's elusive out there. And I think, there's not a whole lot of interest because to date, he really hasn't done too much as a pro. He's had some numbers in the AHL, but he has yet to make it to the NHL, which is fine. We need players in the AHL as well. Our team is pretty darn good down there, but um, they could use a piece or two, and I think he could be that piece or two that could really come in and set a spark, especially if he's going to be playing with a guy like Rizzo down there, who he has history with. And let's face it, Bobby Brink isn't an everyday player on the Flyers yet. He last season he was back and forth. He showed some good signs, and but he went cold at times. So if he does that again, that's going to be two players down there that he could play with that he would look really good against or with, and could potentially bring back some of that old
Yeah.
championship caliber performance.
See, that's one of the things that I really like about how you think and how you write and how you do things, because if you think about this, right, not only would he be a good call up guy, but he could also be a good intricate piece to the puzzle to the Phantoms. Do you know what I mean? And the Phantoms were, I mean, they played against Hershey, and I mean, at least they lost to the eventual
Right.
Calder Cup champions. I
Everybody
mean,
played against Hershey and lost. Yeah. So
Okay, right.
yeah.
Okay, but you need to be able to and see, and that's the other thing I think is one of the reasons why I really like the way you approach things, because not only could he be a help for the Flyers on the cheap, but like you said, he'd sign a two-way contract so that he could play with the Phantoms and be a call up as well too, because you need that depth. Look, let's face it. Last year the the bottom dropped out, okay, and it was because we didn't have any depth in defense, and our top defenders were all sitting on the shelf. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a good. I think that would be a good, like, strategical move to bring in a Carter Savoie, a player of that nature that has some history, that could be down there in the Phantoms. Okay, so now talk to me about Kailer Yamamoto, another player that you have on your list in your article that could potentially be somebody that the Flyers could bring in and help out.
So Kaler is an interesting option here. He has, as of last year, played with Seattle. He didn't have the numbers that he previously did with Edmonton, obviously, but
Yeah,
he was made to potentially be their second option at center in Seattle. And he was
which
playing on a line that was just subpar. It didn't have, Seattle's got amazing players within their system. They're drafting some of the most amazing players that in the draft. They just get them, right? They
yep.
know what they're doing out there as far as building. They're still obviously a young team. That just basically started a couple of years ago. So,
They just need to get their coaching figured out.
they need to get their coaching figured out. They picked up some of our trash beforehand and figured out it was trash. But such is life in the NHL, right? Um,
All
but
right, I'm sorry.
but Yamamoto scored only 8 goals and 8 assists for 16 points last year. He's 25 years old. He was a winger, but plays center as well. But Yamamoto is not that guy that Seattle was making him out to be. He he can't create plays like that, right? He is a guy that plays well with others. Let's say that.
Yeah.
He is a guy that feeds off talent, much like Hyman, right? For Edmonton,
Yeah.
he
Yep.
would not be the player that he is if he wasn't playing with those big name guys in Edmonton, right? He's made a career and a lot of money off of playing with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and all that. He can put in the puck when he knows where to be, out there when he's playing with those type players. And such is Kaler. He scored 22 goals or 20 goals in 21-22 season when he was playing with Edmonton, mostly because he was playing a lot of power play time with those big name guys, and he was playing with guys. Even on his line, I think who'd he play with? Ryan Nugent Hopkins, like that. He was feeding off of playing with that player that can get him the puck, that he can, even when he doesn't have the puck, he knows the right spots to be in where the rebounds are going to come, where he can sneak in behind the defense to kind of, watch it when potentially, a guy like Owen Tippett is drawing those eyes per se to him. He can kind of get in there and just set up shop,
Sneak
and
around.
then
Yeah.
when the play breaking down, boom, puts the puck in the back of the net. So that is the type of guy that Yamamoto is. The Flyers have stressed the need for center, apparently, especially picking Jet in the first round when there was a lot better names, I think, on the board. At that time, Jet is a great player, but maybe not the guy I would have selected a third team. But Danny Briere said he's unhappy with his centers. A lot of them are the same type player. There's no scoring centers, and
You went
Yamamoto
out and
could be
drafted
that,
exactly the same players.
right? And then you go out and draft pass first centers. I don't get it. That's part of the head scratching that we're doing here in Philly right now. But on the cheap, Yamamoto could come in. He could potentially be our second line center, and play with some good players, and replace Frost as that second line center. That there was so much speculation on if they're going to trade him. There was speculation if they're going to trade Scott Lawton. Okay, there was a lot of talk about that at the deadline. Lawton didn't go anywhere. I think that was going to be a needed move, which could have landed us potentially a second round pick or something like that.
Yeah.
At least at that time, and it didn't happen. The Flyers have Paling, who they like down the middle, for a relatively decent price. Some of these players like Morgan Frost have kind of worked themselves kind of out of the lineup, and they were looking for something different. And Yamamoto made $1.5 million last season. And if he could even come in here and produce anywhere close to the goal totals that he did
I'll
in
take that
Edmonton, I'll take that for sure.
all day.
I'll take that for sure, because nobody else is down the
that.
middle.
No, I'm with you. Anytime you can get over 20 goals and you're going to come to the Flyers, hey, I'll take that production, because Flyers lack that production. And I think that was the other thing too. I think there is for whatever reason, it just feels like there's this huge anticipation of Frost being this breakout player, I guess, this year, because for whatever reason,
he's been in the
still
system
on
7
the
or 8
team.
years.
For whatever reason, still on the team. Anyway, okay. So the last name.
Don't get me started.
I mean, look, I'm sorry. I look, we don't want to wish ill will of anybody. We really don't. And we know that there's a team out there that could use a Morgan Frost, like LA or Anaheim or whatever. We would just like for him to be there now instead of That's all. You know what I mean, right? Okay. All right. Last name on the list is a Kirill Marchenko, and talk to me about how this player could be of assistance to the Flyers in this rebuilding time.
Sure. So this one's a little bit different, right? In that he is a restricted free agent for Columbus. Okay. Columbus has extended a qualifying offer to him, but he did not accept it. And he wants a little bit longer deal, I think,
Yeah,
is what's rumored here. This kid is young and 23 years old and thriving already in the NHL. And this this guy got my name. Of course, he's not a unrestricted free agent like the others. But what did the Flyers want to do in this draft deal with the first round pick? What were they trying to do? They were trying to step down and get Demidov, right? That was the
well,
big
that's what they were
rumors.
trying to do. They were trying to trade up so they could get him.
Right, right. They were trying to trade down, trade up, whatever way you want to look at it. They wanted to get into the top 5 so they could get Demidov, um, a potential Russian player to play with Mishkov. The two are familiar with each other. They played SKA together
Yeah,
before Mishkov, got sent, elsewhere within the KHL, loaned out to another team. But they wanted that young player to kind of be with Mishkov for the future, right? Well, they didn't get that, right? They didn't pull the trigger to trade
right.
down and give up what they needed to do that.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm suggesting here. You got a new GM in Waddle. He came from Carolina.
Yeah.
He is known not to pay players. Okay.
True.
He will go out there in what I think is largely due to the guy who's still back in Carolina, his assistant GM at the time, who was able to tell him, hey, we don't need to re-sign that guy for all that money. We can go out and get this guy in free agency that does this, this, and this with these point totals and these schemes and everything else. Bring him in, and he's going to be the same type player for a cheaper option. Waddle, being the GM of now, Columbus, he's still
Blue
looking for
Jackets,
a
yeah.
coach. He's still he's got a lot of things going on right now. And he's got to sit back and say, hey, do we pay this kid who's 23, who scored 21 goals in 2022, 20 or 21, 22, and then 23 this year? Do we pay this kid, or do we kind of try to get a bridge deal? Well, I don't think he's going to settle for that bridge deal. Okay. But the Flyers could call him up and potentially try to trade all those first round picks. We got 3 first round picks, 3 second round picks. Why not spend them on a guy who's a proven NHL talent right now? You want to stockpile them and then keep stockpiling them and not use them at the draft this year. You wanted to trade back to trade him for pieces for next year. Well, heck, why not trade him for a guy who's you're not taking
Already
any
proven
risk on?
commodity.
He's
Yeah.
he's a hot commodity right now. He's playing in NHL at a high level. He's a young Russian player who could help Mishkov in that transition to the North American game. It's nice to have that big giant Russian goaltender in net now that's finally signed after all these years. But what is he going to tell him and help him out when they're in the offensive zone?
Not much.
He's not, right? Kirill could really help mold this guy and give this guy a player that can skate with Mishkov, who can be on the same line as him. They can communicate while Mishkov is still, massive. He knows some English, but he's not
Yeah.
fluent in it yet. And we could potentially sign him for a longer term deal. Now, we don't have the cap space. So you would need to package something with all those first and second round picks and throw in somebody like a Morgan Frost,
I was waiting for it.
like a Scott Lawton, like even, don't hate me for this, Travis Konechny. Okay?
Yeah.
Travis
Yeah. No,
Konechny
I'm
is
not hating
still
you for
out
that.
there saying that he wants a huge $10 million deal. Um, Doug Waddle is more prone to pay those proven players um, the money once they've made it to, like Konechny. For years and years, he's been playing in NHL. He's good, right? He's a player that they need to put on a first line there. Um, because let's face it, line A is poof, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all
Their
that.
stuff up there in
So
Columbus isn't happening.
something around there would be a sign and trade deal where you're going to package somebody up, be able to get somebody off the Flyers roster that doesn't quite fit, and package up all those picks and bring in a player. Like, this is what you need to do. You need to just call. Do not get off the phone until it's done deal. Whatever you need
Well,
to do, this player. What about this player? What about that player? It
yeah.
doesn't matter. You need to come to a conclusion and get somebody like this in the Flyer system because we don't have them besides Mishkov.
And I agree with you 100%. And they tried to do that with Columbus in the draft, where they
Mhm.
tried to contact Columbus and get their fourth overall pick. You know what I mean? So they could get Demidov or whatever. You know what I mean? And Columbus flat out shot him down. So
Well, they said they would do the deal, but it was going to have to be a huge deal that the Flyers didn't want to do. And I don't necessarily blame Waddle for that.
Columbus, yeah, yeah,
He's coming in as the new GM, and he's going to deal away the fourth overall pick. That wouldn't be the guy I would call inside that top five. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
no,
He's not going to do that deal unless he brings back a huge haul
like
because he's
Konechny,
just getting into town. He hasn't even finished setting up his office yet. And
right?
you're asking him to give up the fourth overall pick?
He
I
doesn't
don't
even
think
have his
that's good
email yet.
for
Yeah.
his job tenure.
I mean, you might have had to package up Konechny in that deal.
You might have had to give up a lot more than even he was asking to give
Exactly.
up a fourth round pick for a guy who just came into town
Right.
to fix
Although
that
I
team.
would although I really would like to get Kirill, that would be great, but I don't think we're going to be able to call up Columbus and have anything that we're going to be able to offer them anymore. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but I like the names, I like the choices, I like where you went with the thinking on this, because not only
Yep.
could it help the Flyers, but it could also help the Phantoms as well, and then it would also give Mitchkov somebody right away that could come in and play with him right away. Because I don't really think there's anybody on the team right now that he could just slot in and just be like, "Hey, all right, let's see him with this guy, and this guy." You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how he would
Tippett.
fit with an
I
with an
would put him
Owen
with
Tippett.
Tippett, but that's it. I don't know.
Okay, but we don't even know how he would fit with that.
Yeah.
How would he fit with, say, a Couturier? How would he fit with Lawton and Brink on the other side? Or you understand what I'm saying? None of those names just
No.
seem to just
Mesh.
go
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so you're on the same page that I'm at. You know what I mean? And so, but when you talk about a guy like Krill, or you talk about somebody like that could come in and be that guy that could slot right in, a little bit older, already Russian, speaks the language, knows North America a little bit more, been over
Right.
here a little longer, could kind of show him the ropes a little bit, and it would also, I think, be a good thing for Fedotov too, that would,
Mm-hmm.
give them another person that they could
Yeah.
kind of hang with, and whatever, and we know how it all is with teams and everything, and how they're trying to, bond and everything like that. So I like the choices that you have there, Lance. There's some good, smart choices that you make that could definitely help the Flyers here. Look, we both know that they're rebuilding. Okay, we both know that that's what's going on. It was clearly evident in the draft with the stockpiling of the number one draft picks. But I'm on the same boat as you, man. Look, Okay, you got them, but you got to spend them. And when you, and what we mean by that is, hey, when the players that are available to spend those draft picks on, whether they're draft picks or potential players that are already playing right now that could come in and make a big impact, I think you got to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some other options out there
yeah,
at the start of free agency to do just what we were talking about with Kirill. You know, maybe not as talented as he is or whatever like that, but it would have been a Russian player. There was a ton on the board that could have been had, that could have been brought in to do a similar thing on the offensive side of the tape.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
that he could be on a line with. That's cool that we got Zamula and stuff like that, but he's playing defense. He's not, communicating with them in the offensive zone and trying to set up plays. But the Flyers didn't do anything. So this is the option that that I said, and it's just playing, trying to put square pieces and round holes at this point because you
That's a good way
didn't
to put it.
really do a whole lot. I think it was a kind of downfall after the draft. I think you had your heart set on Demidov and you didn't get him, so you settled for somebody at you punted at 12 saying, "Oh, well, let's move back a piece and we don't really have a guy that really knocks our socks off, so let's move back to 13 and get a little something and get this guy that we kind of like, but we're not sold, we're not 100% sold on or thrilled about." And then
Well,
threw away
clearly
the
they
rest of the
are because they
draft, kind
picked
of
him. So
just said, "Oh man, we'll try again next year." And it kind of went right into free agency. Obviously, free agency is right after the draft, and you kind of just didn't
here's
do a
gonna
whole lot.
be here's gonna be the sad thing about this: the last two drafts. Okay, the Philadelphia Flyers had some opportunities last year to select some players that they did not select. They had some opportunities this year to select some players that they did not select. And what I mean by this is players that could not necessarily come in right now and help the team, but would be good keystone pieces to be building on for the future that would put this team in contention for a number of years. We're looking at generational talent here. You had some opportunities to grab some of those generational talents, and your rivals around you selected those guys where you failed to do so. I feel that in the next 5 years, when Philadelphia is trying to be contenders, they're going to run into those guys that they didn't draft, and that's going to prevent them from being contenders because they're playing for the Capitals or the Rangers or Boston or Hurricanes, or pick somebody. You know what I'm saying, right? So that's the frustrating part about this. Lance and I have studied the draft for a number of years. We know that the 2025 draft is going to be pretty good. Okay. But I think that this year's draft was better all around, better players, because, yeah, you had the one at the top, but the one at the top, the next like 10 or 12 guys below him weren't that far off. Whereas last year, Connor Bernard was way up here and everybody else was kind of down here. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this year it was a little closer. And I think in 2025, we're going to have it more of an even keel where it's going to be good across the board, right? Where you'll have good defensemen, you'll have good forwards, and you'll have some good goalies. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we get forward to look forward to development camp happened last week, right? We didn't hear anything, significant come out of it. We didn't hear, any one particular player that shined or that overly impressed or that blew the doors off of anybody. I mean, everybody was really impressed with Jet's speed. I mean, hello, the guy's name is Jet. But that was it. There
Yeah.
was no like hey, he was really, shooting the puck, or hey, he was really this, or hey, he was fast. Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
You know,
And same, I mean, not just him, but other players that you would have thought would have made major strides and come in and just really, look at this kid. He was
right?
great when we drafted him, but dang, look at him now. There really wasn't a whole ton of that, and I think that'll come more so when you see those guys in the Flyers camp,
Training
and
camp.
yep, training camp against NHL players and see what they can do. Prospects are prospects, and everybody's doing stuff, but what can they do when paired with NHL players out
Or
on
up
the lines
against.
together in drills and stuff like that? Are they going to make those guys look better? Are they like Barkey can tend to do, or are they going to feed off of those NHL players and make themselves stand out, getting those better passes and everything else from those guys? So it's gonna be difficult. Wasn't impressed overly with the draft. We'll see where that goes. Wasn't impressed with free agency. Didn't expect them to make a major move or signing of like some teams did that have a ton of cap space. Obviously, they don't have that, but um, it's really going to have to play out here, and see who can come in at training camp and make a name for themselves, because there are some players in the Flyer system that are kind of on that bubble of do they really benefit from going back to juniors for another year,
Or
in
staying up.
or just staying up, and your Denver Barkeys I want to watch. I want to see
Bonk.
what Bonk does. I want to see what Rizzo does.
I want to see
Um,
what Alex Bump does too.
Alex Bump, they were kind of high on. He had a great season last year.
Yep.
Um, you know who's gonna really show out, and where's Dayone? That was a huge name a couple of years ago. He's kind of fell off.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
you
he's had
know,
some injuries.
right,
So I mean,
right, as does everybody. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But
But how's he
I
gonna
would
come
like to
back
see
from
him.
them?
Yeah, I
How's
would
he
like to
gonna
see
come
him
back
show
from them?
out.
I want to see. I want to see where Tumala is.
Yeah.
He was drafted with a second round pick, very high. And that was another a guy that the Flyers reached on to go get, and really, he had some hype surrounding him, but I don't know if they know how to develop foreign players
Yeah.
well
Right.
in our system.
Right.
And it's been quite a while since we've had players from Sweden and Finland with any type of real success in the Flyer system. And I think they've made some moves um, to kind of combat that and get better at that. But with as far as development coaches and scouting and everything like that.
See,
But
that's the thing. And a lot of those guys
Gendron,
are new.
yep, Gendron's another name that I'm
Yep.
watching.
Yep.
You know, is Kaplan gonna come in and do something? I want to see you know
That's another good
what
name too.
what he does. He's made some strides this past season. You
Yep.
know, that was kind of an underrated name there. But
I agree. I agree.
as who's going to all be there, who knows? The defense, there's a ton of guys in the defense with Ronnie Attard,
I
Emil
want to see.
Andre.
I want to see him make the team
I
out of
want to see
camp.
somebody. I want to see a young guy make the team out of camp. Of course, you got Drysdale hopefully coming back healthy.
Healthy. Yeah.
You got Zumala there, okay? But I
Really
want to
impressed with
see,
how he played last year. Really impressed.
yep, I want to see a battle. I want to see a Tard. I want to see Andre. I want to see Jennings. I want to see Helgi Grans. I want to see Bonk, all fighting for a spot, of that number one, at least the number one call up guy, like sure thing on the way, somebody making strides.
You know,
If not, make the team out
out of camp.
out of the
Yeah.
jump, like
Yeah. Yeah.
day one, game one.
Take
Um,
Johnson's spot.
Something, yeah,
Please. Somebody.
somebody.
Okay.
Because
Seriously.
I think at this time he was just signed for that reason, where we don't have a kind of sure thing that's going to make the team out the gate. So he was brought back as a kind of guy that, hey, maybe he can play 15 to 20 games and then somebody's going to be ready, kind of thing. So,
Well, look, here's how I look at it. The only way to do it is to put him out there. Seriously. Okay.
yeah,
You have to stop protecting these guys, and you have to basically just throw them to the wolves. I mean, that's the only way they're going to find out what they got in these players.
sink
You
or
got to
float.
see them play. You know what I mean? You got to see them play, and if they're not going to be able to hang, then you got to see that too. You know what I'm saying? So I'll tell you what, though, we're hanging with you guys, and we're going to be here no matter what. So big props and thanks to Lance for another great super article that you put out again as well. And man, I got to tell you, dude, you just keep writing this stuff, and I don't know. It's all good, man. It's all good. I love reading your stuff, man. I love reading the articles. So, and I know you guys love reading his stuff because holy moly, man, the numbers are flying off the shelves, man. Holy smokes. So, here's some good fun information for you right now so far for July, right? We are already at 87,000 impressions already. Okay, we're the 20th of July. Okay, some of Lance's articles have had over 1,000 reads. Oh my gosh. Uh, Thank you all so very much. The amount of subscribers we're getting on the YouTube has grown. The amount of viewership that we're getting has grown. Thank you all so very much, man. We really appreciate it. We're really trying to put out good quality stuff here, and we really appreciate the fact that you guys are tuning in on a regular basis, and you keep tuning in because we keep putting out good stuff. Especially thanks to Lance for all the great articles. Thank you, sir.
No problem. I appreciate you guys reading them. Like Steel said, I'll keep them coming. You just keep reading them.
That's right. And we'll keep everything rolling as well, too. Also, be sure to go over to the website and check out the new Prospect Watch stuff that we've been doing over there, man. We're doing a lot of stuff about Prospect Watch. Got a lot of great players that we've had out there. Got to go check that out. SteelFlyers.com/link/Prospect Watch. Also, be sure to check out Prospect Watch on Twitter or X, however you want to call that, at Prospect Watch 23. Also, you can check us out on Instagram at Prospect Watch 1. You can also check us out on the YouTube as well, too. But what you would really like to do is watch Hockey Writers Ink. See, I know how you guys are. Thank you all to the Facebook groups for allowing us to post all of our shows, all of our articles. We really, really appreciate that. We've been growing in some of those areas as well, too, where we've gained a lot more of the groups we're joining and everything like that. So big props to the Facebook groups for allowing us to post out and to share all of our great Flyers knowledge with you guys, because let's face it, Flyers fans are pretty dang smart. You know what I mean? So, all right, Lance, why don't you tell the folks how we can find you and where we can get all your great stuff?
Yeah, guys, you can catch all the articles, of course, like Steel said, at steelflyers.com. You can catch us on YouTube and watch any of these past shows or Prospect Watch shows on there as well. And you can catch me on Twitter at lance.green39.
Awesome. And you can also catch the show on X at HCKY Writers Inc. And you can also catch your co-host Ron SteelFlyers at SteelFlyers52 on Twitter. Don't forget to check us out online at all of your favorite outlets, especially all of your podcasting outlets. We are there, and we thank you. And thank you all very much for checking out Hockey Writers Inc. We'll catch you all in the next episode.